Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Courtney Quinn on the line, and she's a financial advisor over at Northwestern Mutual. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Adam. I like your show. It's great.
Very kind and excited to get into today's topic. So empowering women and around finance. I mean, a huge, huge topic out here. I know when I was a financial advisor, I feel like there weren't enough women definitely taking care of what needed to be done there. We didn't have many around, but now I like with women like yourself coming in, and now you're a financial advisor, worked your way up the ranks at Northwestern Mutual. Congratulations on that. It's just an awesome thing in my opinion. But before we get into that, I want to get a little bit further into what you're doing over at Northwestern Mutual. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing as a financial advisor, please.
Okay, well, really, I think in the most simplest terms, I help people protect their money, make money, and save money. I also like to say that I help people create peace of mind around their money. And at Northwestern Mutual, really what we do is comprehensive planning. So looking at both the defensive and offensive sides of a financial plan, and then really helping our clients implement that for themselves and their future.
Where do you find a lot of people, and I know this is going to change, by the way, from client to client and situation to situation, so I know everybody's going to be a little bit different, but where do you find a lot of people make mistakes in kind of trying to reach their objectives, just in general terms?
You know, I think really we're accountability partners. I think it's human nature to want instant gratification, and we're just constantly trying to help our clients throw money to their future selves in different buckets. And so I think that oftentimes if they don't have a plan, if they don't have an accountability partner, then it's easy just to spend the money you make.
Well said.
And that's
well
why,
said.
I think that's also why, now, 50% of people don't have enough saved in retirement?
Yeah, well said. I want to switch it up a bit, Heather. Let's get a little bit into today's topic, so empowering women around finance. So maybe it makes sense to first tell us a little bit more about how you got started and why you entered the business.
Okay, so I'm a career changer. My background actually was in television and entertainment. I worked both in film and television, developing stories with writers and putting them in a script format and selling those ideas to networks and studios. And so when I was in that side of the business, I was running the TV side of Will Smith's company, and I ended up in the hospital for preterm labor, and then knew I was going to have to do it again for my second child, so I left and became an independent producer. And at that time, which was a harder thing to do, it was equal parts success and frustration because the studios changed the payment structure, and people weren't getting paid for selling stuff up front. So you only got paid on the back end, and that was just a harder way to make money. But more importantly, what happened around that time was that my mom got really sick with cancer. So it was fortuitous that I wasn't in a conventional job because I was able to take care of her, but this was also a really eye-opening experience, and I think what led me here. She was an immigrant from the Philippines and came to this country as a nurse and then got her JD and eventually started suing doctors. So she was a modern woman, ball buster. And unfortunately, when she eventually divorced my dad, she made a big mistake and she didn't take any of his pension out of pride. She made it in this country and was proud of the fact that she didn't need his money. And what I realized was that although she was a very educated woman, she was not financially educated. And this is when I ended up on the wrong side of planning, not planning. My mother became really sick and she was not planned out at all. She didn't have long-term care and was sick for several years longer than anyone expected her to be. And so she quickly ran through her money and the money that her family had given her and eventually started running through our money. And this was ultimately a really expensive endeavor. So it was around this time also that I was introduced to Northwestern. And this, naturally, because of what I had been through, I wanted to learn more about how, for myself and for others, how can this not happen again? And so this is when I became passionate about helping empower and educate women around finance.
Oh, I love it, and it's such a sad story in terms of how you came about it, but now you're able to help so many people. I always tell people if I was in the business for a long time, been full time in media now, going on 3 or 4 years, but I was in the business as an advisor for, I don't know, over a decade, maybe 14 years or something like that. And the way I got into it, and I remember I started very young, but I remember my mother, it was basically she didn't have that education around her 401k. And she's okay with me sharing the story, by the way, everybody, but she didn't start her 401k till she was in her 40s. And she was an educated woman. I mean, master's degree from University of Michigan in social work. I mean, very smart woman, educated, all that stuff. She just didn't know. She didn't know any better. And so because you didn't know, she started pretty late. For the people listening, if you know, don't start late. It's a good thing. Like, you can't get those years back per se, and it's much more expensive as time goes on. So I love it, Heather. I love your story.
We don't learn these things in school, right? I mean, unless you study it, you specifically study finance. It's not something that we learn. I was an English major.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about empowering women in finance. I mean, what do you think, now that you're in the business, and where do you think some of that opportunity lies?
Well, I mean, I think particularly, I've been speaking to a number of women's groups in entertainment specifically, and I think, especially there where we're talking about Me Too and wage gaps and feeling subjugated, what I find is there's a fundamental disconnect. At least 60% of the women that I sit down with are the breadwinners in their families. Mm-hmm. Yet whether it's sheer disinterest, lack of time, or not completely wanting to emasculate their male partners, what I find is that many of them are still passing the handling of the finances off to their men. Mm-hmm. And in our society, money has traditionally been a male construct, right? But what I think really needs to change is this paradigm, right? What's even more poignant is these women are likely going to outlive their men, and then will be stuck with whatever decision he's made, for better or worse. So I really just want to galvanize women to educate themselves and be aware of the decisions they're directly or indirectly making, so that they don't have to suffer the consequences that I did.
Where do you think this comes from? So the whole thought process of, because we agree that both men and women are not taught this in school, right? And if they are, then maybe they didn't go to that class. So, I mean, you have to take some accountability for yourself too. I'm not blaming it all on the school systems. But where do you think that comes from, to where, that current situation that you're saying? Because I see it too. I've seen it, and I'm always like, why? That doesn't make sense. Like, as I was an advisor too, I'm like, why is this happening? Where do you, in your experience so far, where do you think that comes from? Because I can't speak from the women's side. Like, were they handed over, or they, like, as you mentioned, as you described it, where do you think that comes from?
Well, I mean, look, I think, the division of responsibility, I think if there are children in the equation, it's easy to say, look, I'm busy, I'm doing all of this, you've got to take something. But still, I think the problem with that is what I said earlier, which is just that they're going to likely outlive their men. And oftentimes, if they are the breadwinners, maybe, when you ask what the guy does, he's a photographer. He has no financial education either. So, I think just being more active in these decisions is going to be helpful for everyone.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. Well, Heather, if somebody is listening to this and they want more information around financial education or to connect with you on what you're doing over at Northwestern, what's the best way for them to reach out?
You can reach me. You can reach me at my email, heather.quinn@nm.com. Also on my website, which you can find, Northwestern Mutual, Heather Courtney Quinn. Or you can give me a call in the office, 213-243-7057.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Heather, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and your story in finance and how you're out there helping empower other women in finance and to take control of their financial future. It's awesome. And thank you for sharing your story, of course, with you and your mother. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you had fun listening. Hope you got something out of it. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Money, then definitely give us a subscribe there and leave us some comments in the comment section. Love to know your opinion and what you have going on also. And Heather, thank you again for coming on the show.